My mother claimed she was too ill to babysit my daughter, but I later caught her happily caring for my sister's kids. After years of financial support, lies, and favoritism, I finally cut them off, and everything changed forever. My mother declined to babysit my child, claiming inability. "You're managing alone now," I messaged, simultaneously halting all financial contributions. That Christmas, my father arrived. At 31, I instantly sensed trouble from his solemn demeanor. My mother, Margaret, was seated on the sofa with Lisa's children, appearing more robust than I'd witnessed in months. For someone reportedly too unwell to care for my daughter, Mia, for a single evening, she appeared perfectly capable with my sister's 3 offspring. A profound unease settled over me. The scene seemed to freeze. Their cheerful sounds ceased as they noticed me in the entryway. My mother's complexion briefly lost its color before she composed herself, displaying that familiar smile I'd seen countless times. "Jake, what an unexpected visit," she warbled, gently bouncing my nephew. I found myself speechless. The wad of cash in my grasp, intended for additional household expenses, suddenly felt impossibly heavy. My gaze flickered between my mother, Lisa's children, and my father, who sank further into his armchair, deliberately avoiding my eyes. "You claimed poor health prevented you from watching Mia," I eventually articulated, my tone strained. The room grew quiet. My mother hesitated, but Lisa, ever quick with an alibi, rushed to her defense. "She has so much on her plate," Lisa stated. "Wouldn't want her to overdo it." My irritation flared, a familiar pressure building behind my eyes. I echoed her exact words back, keeping my voice subdued. "She is actively babysitting right this moment." My mother sighed, massaging her temple as if I were the source of her stress. The irony was not lost on me. She clarified that this situation was distinct. Lisa required her support, asserting that raising children alone posed challenges. The ground seemed to vanish beneath me. 32 years of feelings secondary crystallized in that precise instant. I asked her directly if Lisa, who had never contributed financially in her life, for whom mother had always gone to extraordinary lengths since childhood, truly needed her more than I did. A heavy silence descended. My father shifted uncomfortably. Lisa rolled her eyes, and my mother simply shook her head, as if my question was absurd. "It's not like that," she insisted, yet it was precisely like that. My jaw tightened, a sensation strong enough to crack teeth. Everything abruptly made sense. My mother's purported illness wasn't about her well-being, it was about maintaining control. She wished to avoid jeopardizing the financial pipeline, so she fabricated a story, manipulating me, allowing me to believe she was too feeble to assist, all while cashing my payments without remorse. And Lisa knew. She had always been aware. Something within me gave way. Years of frustration, bitterness, and disappointment erupted. I informed them I finally understood. I was never truly a member of this family, merely the contingent plan, the safety net, the fool who kept the lights on while they pursued their own lives. My mother gasped dramatically. I cut her off before she could speak. "This wasn't fair?" I challenged. "No. What wasn't fair was me covering your expenses for years while you treated me as an afterthought, believing you genuinely required my assistance, when the truth was, you simply didn't wish to do anything for me." My mother was a deceiver. Lisa leaned forward with that smirk I had grown to despise. She branded me dramatic, asserting Mom had to walk on eggshells around me because I was so rigid. I turned to her, my expression hardened into stone. I called her pathetic, stating she permitted Mom to pamper her like a perpetual 15-year-old, indulging in it because it was simpler than accepting responsibility for her own existence. They deserved each other. Without another word, I departed. My mother called out. Lisa shouted something snide. My father remained quiet as always. I didn't stop, I couldn't. My hands trembled on the steering wheel. My throat burned. The journey home blurred through streetlights and traffic signals. By the time I parked in my driveway, I knew what action I had to take. Erin awaited me in the kitchen, Mia already asleep upstairs. One glance at my face was all it took. She inquired what had transpired, her voice gentle with concern. I recounted everything. The childcare request, the deceptions, the definitive confirmation of our long-held suspicions. She appeared unsurprised. Perhaps a part of her had always known too. She asked my next intention. I simply told her I was finished. Just finished. That night, I experienced a quality of sleep I hadn't known in years. The following morning, I terminated every payment. The rent, the utilities, the car insurance, the grocery deliveries, absolutely everything. Then I dispatched one final message. You're on your own now. Best of luck. And I blocked their contact numbers. What ensued was sheer disorder. First, missed calls flooded my phone, dozens of them, flashing like a holiday display before I implemented the block. Then, urgent, desperate, and guilt-ridden emails arrived. When those went unanswered, they began contacting Erin. She declined each call with a satisfaction that made me cherish her anew. Ultimately, Margaret made it public, a lengthy, tearful Facebook post detailing how her ungrateful son had abandoned his poor, ailing mother in her moment of need. She vividly described sacrificing everything for me, only to be repaid with cruelty. I chose not to engage. Instead, I composed my own post, devoid of dramatics, presenting only the stark truth. I had been paying their bills for years. My mother had fabricated an illness to avoid babysitting my daughter. She refused to care for my child for a single night, but was perfectly content looking after my sister's children. I was done being exploited. The response was immediate and fierce. Relatives I hadn't spoken to in ages reached out in solidarity. Friends shared their own narratives of dysfunctional family dynamics. Even some of my parents' neighbors chimed in, remarking on seeing my mother gardening or shopping on days she'd claimed to be confined to bed. Lisa bore the brunt of it. Her meticulously constructed image as the struggling single mother disintegrated under scrutiny regarding her spending habits and frequent getaways. Then came the conclusive event, a knock at my door 3 days later. Through the peephole, I saw them, Margaret and Frank, standing on my porch, looking forlorn. My father's face was worn, my mother's eyes red-rimmed, though I questioned the sincerity of her tears, wondering if it was merely another act. I paused, my hand resting on the doorknob. A part of me desired to ignore them, to let them linger until they conceded and left. But another part, the one that hadn't entirely detached, wished to hear their message. I opened the door but remained positioned in the entryway, preventing their entry. My mother immediately began, her voice cracking as she implored us to converse, reminding me they were my parents. I instructed them to speak, not moving from my stance. My father cleared his throat. Son, your mother is devastated. We both are. We never intended to cause you pain. You didn't intend for me to discover it, I corrected him. There's a distinction. My mother reached for my arm, but I stepped back. Sweetheart, I know you're upset, but severing ties like this, it's cruel. We can't cover rent this month. The electric company is threatening to disconnect our power. Is that your desire? Your parents living in darkness. The attempt at a guilt trip was so predictable, so transparent, I nearly laughed. You have alternatives, I stated calmly. Dad can secure employment. You can move to a smaller residence. Lisa can finally begin contributing. Or you can continue these charades and observe where that leads you. My mother's expression hardened. After all we've done for you, is this how you repay us? By abandoning us to the streets. What precisely have you done for me, Mom? I countered. Name one thing from the last decade that wasn't centered on what I could provide for you. Silence. My father averted his gaze. My mother's mouth opened and closed, but no words emerged. That's what I thought. I conveyed. I informed them they had made their decision. Now they could endure its consequences. I closed the door. For the first time in my life, I felt genuinely liberated. No more guilt, no more manipulation, no more pursuing an affection that was never truly present, and it felt incredibly good. The subsequent weeks unfolded with surprising tranquility. Erin and I took Mia to the shore for a prolonged weekend. We began searching for homes in a different school district, something we had discussed for years, but never acted upon. I received a promotion at work, partly because I could finally concentrate without constant family crises diverting my attention. However, life is rarely so straightforward. Gossip reached me through well-meaning colleagues and distant relatives. My parents were circulating rumors that I had experienced some form of emotional breakdown. Lisa was telling anyone who would listen that I had always been unstable and preoccupied with money. My aunt telephoned me one evening. She bypassed pleasantries, immediately informing me they were claiming I had lost it. Margaret was spreading the word that I was undergoing a sort of midlife crisis. I sighed, leaning back in my office chair. I asked her if she was surprised. Not even a little, she admitted. I know your mother. She couldn't tolerate losing authority. My aunt had always discerned my mother's manipulations, which was why they rarely communicated anymore. I inquired about the severity of the situation. Bad enough, she told me. They were reportedly facing eviction next month. Frank had attempted to regain his former position at the hardware store, but they weren't hiring. Lisa had been soliciting loans from various people, but connections were being drawn. A flicker of something, not quite guilt but similar, passed through me. I told her it was no longer my concern, yet my voice lacked conviction. My aunt was silent for a moment. She concurred it wasn't my responsibility and acknowledged I had done more than enough. She merely believed I ought to be aware of what was being disseminated. After we concluded the call, I sat in silence, observing the sunset through my office window. Was I a poor son? A cruel individual? Doubts crept in like shadows. Erin found me there an hour later, still gazing into the distance. She asked if I was all right, perching on the edge of my desk. I admitted I wasn't certain. A part of me felt unbound, but another part felt blameworthy. She took my hand, her expression serious. She reminded me that I had supported them for years. I had granted them more opportunities than they deserved. All they had to do was be truthful with me, treat me with the same respect they showed Lisa. They couldn't even manage that. She was correct. I knew she was correct. I confessed my apprehension about what would happen when they genuinely required assistance, when they were elderly and truly incapable of self-care. Erin squeezed my hand. That is a hurdle to cross when we reach it, she told me. But supporting them doesn't necessitate being manipulated by them. There's a distinction between assisting parents and serving as their personal ATM. I nodded, drawing her into my lap. I asked her when she had become so perceptive. She asserted she had always possessed wisdom. I was just finally listening. 2 months elapsed. Mia learned to count to 20, a development that brought me more delight than any professional advancement ever could. We placed an offer on a house in a tranquil neighborhood with excellent schools. Life progressed. Then came the Christmas card. It arrived on a Tuesday, tucked between bills and supermarket circulars. No return address, but I instantly recognized my mother's handwriting. Inside was a generic holiday card featuring a family photograph, my parents and Lisa with her children, all smiling as if nothing had changed. On the reverse, a single line in my mother's flowing script. We miss you. No apology, no acknowledgement of past events, just 3 words intended to make everything better. I discarded it without a second thought. That evening, as Erin and I adorned our Christmas tree, the doorbell chimed. I froze, tinsel in hand. Erin offered to answer it, squeezing my shoulder as she passed. I heard hushed voices, then Erin returned with an expression I couldn't quite decipher. It was your dad, she informed me quietly. Just him. My father stood in the entryway, hands in his pockets, appearing smaller than I recalled. His hair had completely grayed since my last sighting, deep lines etched across his face. We exchanged terse greetings. I inquired about his presence. He glanced at Erin, then back to me. He asked if we could converse, just for a few moments. Erin gave me a look that indicated it was my decision. I nodded, and she took Mia upstairs for her bath, leaving us in privacy. I gestured toward the living room, and we sat on opposite ends of the couch, the partially decorated Christmas tree twinkling between us. Your mother is unaware I'm here, he began, staring at his hands. She'd be furious if she found out. That captured my attention. So, why are you? He took a deep breath. Because I owe you an apology. A genuine one. Not whatever manipulative nonsense your mother has been attempting. I didn't respond, I had endured too many insincere apologies over the years. He continued, his voice rough. He had failed me, not merely recently, but throughout my entire life. He had stood by while my mother showed favoritism toward Lisa. He had observed her exploit my generosity without uttering a single word. He had allowed it to happen. The raw sincerity in his voice took me by surprise. Asked him why he never intervened. He rubbed his face, suddenly appearing every bit his 68 years. He confessed he was a coward. It was simpler to let her have her way than to contend with her, simpler to remain silent than to champion what was right. He didn't anticipate forgiveness. He wouldn't in my position. But he needed me to understand that I was justified in walking away, and he was proud of me for possessing the courage he never did. Something constricted in my chest loosened slightly. Asked him what would happen now. They're relocating with Lisa, he told me, grimacing. My mother's idea, not mine. The irony was Lisa wasn't pleased about it either. It turned out she didn't actually wish to look after them. Who would have thought? Despite everything, a faint smile touched my lips. Shocking, I deadpanned. For the first time in months, my father also smiled, a sad, weary smile, but genuine. He stated he ought to leave. My mother would be wondering about his whereabouts. I accompanied him to the door, uncertain what to utter. He paused on the threshold, turning back. Merry Christmas, son. That's a beautiful little girl you have. You're a better father than I ever was. Before I could respond, he was gone, trudging through the light snow back to his vehicle. I closed the door, leaning against it, strangely unsettled. I hadn't expected him to acknowledge his shortcomings, much less apologize for them. It didn't erase the past, but it was something. Erin found me still standing there minutes later. She asked if I was all right. Yeah, I said, surprising myself by genuinely meaning it. I think I am. That night, as we completed decorating the tree, I reflected on family, not the one I was born into, but the one I had chosen. Erin, who loved me unconditionally, Mia, who regarded me as her entire world, even my friends and colleagues who had supported me through everything. They were my true family, not flawless, but real. We moved into our new home, a modest 4-bedroom with a backyard large enough for a swing set. Mia turned 3, celebrating with a dinosaur-themed party that left our kitchen coated in green frosting for days. I heard from my father occasionally, brief, awkward phone calls that neither of us quite knew how to navigate. My mother still refused to apologize, informing anyone who would listen that I was the one who needed to make amends. Lisa had apparently ousted them after 2 months, unable to manage their constant demands. They were now renting a small apartment on a fixed income. A part of me felt vindicated. They were finally encountering the repercussions of their actions. But another part felt a pang of sadness, not precisely for them, but for what might have been, for the relationships we could have cultivated if circumstances had been different. One bright Saturday, as I gently pushed Mia on her new swing set, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It's Lisa. Can we talk? I stared at the screen, unsure how to respond. My sister and I hadn't spoken since that day at our parents' house. What could she possibly wish to convey now? Curiosity prevailed. When and where? I replied. We met at a coffee shop the following Monday during my lunch break. Lisa was already there when I arrived, appearing different than I remembered, less polished, more authentic. She thanked me for coming. Asked her directly what she desired. She wrapped her hands around her coffee mug, avoiding my gaze. I owe you an apology, she finally admitted. I've been terrible to you. I raised an eyebrow, waiting. She explained how she had assumed it would be fine when our parents moved in with her. She had thought they would assist with the children, perhaps contribute to expenses, but they simply expected everything. Mom complained about her cooking, her parenting, her housekeeping. Dad sat watching television all day. Sounds familiar, I dryly remarked. She nodded, looking remorseful. For the first time, she comprehended what I had been enduring. It was draining. After 2 months, she couldn't tolerate it anymore. I noted that she had evicted them. I had to, she insisted. They were driving me insane. I leaned back, examining my sister's face. There was something distinct in her expression, a humility I had never witnessed before. Asked her why she was disclosing this to me. She sighed, meeting my eyes directly. She admitted I was correct about everything. Mom did favor me. She did take advantage. She allowed me to bear the burden alone because it was easier than acknowledging how dysfunctional everything was. And I am truly sorry. I wasn't sure what I had anticipated from this encounter, but it wasn't this. Lisa had never apologized to me. Not once in 32 years. I told her I appreciated that, but a single apology couldn't erase decades of behavior. She promptly agreed. She wasn't seeking forgiveness. She simply needed me to know that she now perceived it, what they had done to me, what she had done. She was striving to be better for her children. Something in her words resonated with me. For my kids. Despite everything, Lisa was a mother endeavoring to break the cycle. Asked if she was still in contact with them. Sometimes, she said. Mom is still mom. She'll never change. But Lisa is establishing boundaries now. No more endless babysitting, no more loans, no more guilt trips. I nodded, understanding precisely what she meant. I inquired about her children, surprising myself with the question. Lisa smiled, some of her tension visibly easing. They're good, she told me.
Busy.
Jack started kindergarten. Emma is obsessed with soccer. They sometimes ask about their cousin Mia. An awkward silence settled between us. 32 years of complex history couldn't be resolved in a single coffee meeting. I finally told her that I couldn't guarantee we would ever be close. There was too much history between us. But perhaps we could start anew, as adults, without all the baggage? Lisa nodded, her eyes suspiciously bright. I'd like that, she said softly. We conversed for another 20 minutes, discussing cautious, neutral topics. Her profession, my new residence, the weather. It wasn't much, but it was a commencement. As we were leaving, she turned to me. She thanked me again for meeting her and for confronting them. If I hadn't, I'm not sure I ever would have seen the truth. I nodded, not quite prepared to say, "You're welcome," but acknowledging her words. Walking back to my office, I felt somehow lighter. Not because everything was resolved, it wasn't and might never be, but because I had finally broken free from the patterns that had defined my life for so long. I was no longer the family's financial provider. I wasn't the overlooked son, the dependable one who never received the recognition he merited. I was simply Jake, husband, father, and a man finally living on his own terms. That night, as I tucked Mia into bed, she looked up at me with her mother's eyes. "Daddy," she said sleepily, "are you happy?" I kissed her forehead, inhaling the sweet fragrance of her shampoo. "Yes, sweetheart," I said. "I'm very happy." And for the first time in as long as I could recall, it was entirely true.